Welcome everybody to this edition of Inside the Isles. I'm Aiden Northcott as always. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you've had a fantastic start to your week, another beautiful day, and obviously it's going to get a little more beautiful as we go along. So hopefully everybody has enjoyed that. As we get closer to June, the weather is obviously going to get a little better, but things start to pick up a little bit for the QMJHL as the 2020 QMJHL Draft gets underway starting next Friday night with the first round on Friday night, June 5th. And rounds 2 through 14, Saturday, June 6th. One person who's obviously going to be a little more busy than the rest of us on that day is none other than your Charlottetown Islanders head coach and general manager, Jim Hulton. So and I've got Jim with me today. Jim, thanks for taking the time to chat.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So I'll start with the first couple questions that I always ask every person is where have you been doing your social distancing and what has been your go-to social distancing outfit?
Two very good questions. First one, we've been bunkered down in our house up in Anglo Rustico. We're fortunate that we're out in the country. We've got lots of space around us. We've had multiple daily walks with our dog for lots of exercise. Go-to outfit has been jeans and a t-shirt. My honey-do list is very long after a winter at the. There's been lots of attempts at handymanning, and I use the attempt very loosely.
You're the first person to come on that has said jeans. Everybody else has said sweats. So I commend you for that much. Who's been the better house guest, Lucas Hulton or Lucky?
Lucky by far. Lucky is the winner. He's the best traveler. He's by far our best child because he doesn't speak back.
That's awesome. Well, I'll before we get into the draft, you and I talked a little bit about the season that was and the way that it ended, but haven't done that in a bit of a public setting. So I'll start with that. This season, never minding how it ended, but looking at it as a whole from a coach's standpoint, how did you feel about the season kind of from start to finish and the development of your club?
Well, overall, I think we were very pleased with our club. It was a little bit of an uncertain situation going into this season because we're still in a bit of a transition phase from some of the known names last year. Obviously, a year ago at the trade deadline when we let go Joseph and Getson was kind of signifying a bit of a retooling for our organization. So the back half of that season and then into this season, there was a little bit more uncertainty, but really liked the growth of our younger players. I liked how our veterans kind of emerged over the course of this season. And I guess everybody can lament the fact of how the season ended, but for us, I thought that we were finally starting to gain some confidence and identity that was going to hopefully propel us into some success in the playoffs. So the overall growth of the club, I thought, was very good.
And we talk about the growth, and obviously a big key to this team and a big storyline to follow was the development of like young players. This is probably one of the youngest teams that we've had in a long time with 4 16-year-olds in the roster, and then players like Ben Boyd obviously making the jump for a little bit, and Del Welton. What did you see from your young players from start to finish? Like, were you happy with their overall progression?
Well, that was probably one of the biggest areas of growth on our team were those young players. When you reference the 4 underage players, start with Gooby and that. I mean, he was a terrific understudy to Matt Welsh, and I think that's going to hold him in great stead as his career moves forward. You know, he made the under-17 team. He got in close to 20 games. Had the season not been cut short, he would have been darn close to the 20-game mark. And that was one of our goals coming in. And I think Jacob's ready to go to the next step in his career. When we look at the back end, even Oscar Plandowski, Oscar came as advertised. I think he's got tremendous upside. You can see his confidence grow and leaps and bounds over the course of the season. And he's a guy that we probably threw to the wolves a little bit early in the season out of necessity with some injuries. But really liked how he finished off. And I think he's got a tremendous potential here as his career moves forward. Our back end was very interesting because we talk about our young players, yet we seem to still consider Cormier as a veteran, yet we forget he's only 17 years old. You know, Lucas went through a trying season with the broken foot and the injury, yet still when you look at the body of his work and his points per game, it's a progression from his rookie season, which was so tremendous. And again, we're excited about his odds and the NHL draft whenever it does occur. But again, he's only 17 years old. William Trudeau was a terrific find back there, a guy that, quite frankly, I didn't know a lot about coming into the season, but person and player really, really emerged and going to be a legitimate top 4 defenseman. So when we talk about the young players, I think of our back end, and then Justin Gill. Justin was a big body that came in and had a terrific training camp, and again, I thought was playing his best hockey at the end of the year. And Drew Elliott was a guy that we acquired at Christmas, an underage player who looks like he fits our mold perfectly. He looks to me like a young Keith Getson out there, and we all know how highly we regard Keith.
No doubt, no doubt. One of the things you mentioned about William Trudeau and how he progressed and how he became so dependable for you. One of the things that I don't think many people really think about when they think about these players, when you hear like a 17-year-old player, technically that is what Will Trudeau is in this league, but he didn't turn 17 until it was like the middle of November. So he was really playing in the league as a 16-year-old when he first came in, and I thought to see that progression from him, especially at a younger age in comparison to his counterparts and his peers, I thought that was even more impressive myself.
Well, it was really impressive. When you look at in hockey, they always talk about late birthdays, and for the NHL, late birthdays anything after September 15th. So in fact, he's not eligible for the draft until next year, along with those 03s that we talked about. And I think Willie's a great example of what the draft can produce. And it's ironic that we're talking about him really on the eve of our draft coming up, because that's what quality drafting can do. And it's a credit to our scouts, even though we didn't draft Willie, they identified him as a player of interest when we traded PO to Drummondville. But I mean, Willie's a 7th round draft pick. I think he's a great example and story for all the young players out there that not to be upset or disappointed if you don't go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, so that's actually a great segue into that draft topic. As I mentioned off the top, QMJHL Draft next weekend. It will be broadcast on YouTube, on the QMJHL's YouTube page. We'll have some great coverage on our social media as well of all of our draft picks, and hopefully some insight along in this format as well. But we'll start kind of at the draft in terms of like organizational depth. Like how do you think, and what would be your summary of how the team is looking heading into this draft right now?
Well, we're pretty excited where we're at. We think we're a team that can be a contender for the next couple of seasons. We referenced our backhander defense here for a while, but we're returning 5 guys, and the quality when you think of returning in pairs of basically Cormier, Lawau, Trudeau, Plandowski, ML, and 2 spots open, whether that be a free agent, whether that be Luke Fardy, who we drafted in the 3rd round last year, whether it be someone from this year's draft or a combination of them. I think that back end unit is going to be the strength of our team for the next couple of seasons. We have Jacob in net. We're actively pursuing other options for one goalie, whether it be a free agent or someone within our system. We're looking at all different options, and up front's a number of bodies back. I think we've committed to the overage positions to Casey and Daverso and Payton as of right now. Budgel, I think, is on the brink of a bust-out season. I had a terrific season last year. We got Beauregard, we have Johnson, we have Patty LeBlanc, you got Gill back, you got Elliott back. You mentioned earlier Ben Boyd. Ben's a draft pick from last year who played games with this year. He's going to be in our lineup. So again, really, really excited about the depth of where we're at. So it affords us the opportunity to go into this draft, not having to fill in an immediate need. I think we can sit back and assess a number of organizational needs of the next couple of seasons in this draft.
So I'm just going to quickly highlight something there because I want to make sure that people watching did pick up on that. You did say you committed to the 3 overage positions already in Cedric Desroseaux, Thomas Casey, and Liam Payton. I think it's a great testament to a guy like Liam Payton. He was a guy that he works really hard. I think he's really, like you talk about identity and it's often a buzzword that kind of goes along with doing interviews with anybody on the Islanders. But Liam Payton, in my mind, is one of those players that definitely fits that Charlottetown Islanders identity and the role that the way that you guys want to play.
Well, he is, and we started the interview off by talking about the growth of our team and some of the individuals over the course of this past season. That's the perfect word to describe what Liam has done in his career here in Charlottetown. You know, it was so nice to see that his confidence kind of catch up with his God-given abilities and size this past year. That's what we felt before. He was just lacking a little bit of confidence and self-belief. And this year, you can really see it go, and the offense started to come out. And he's an extremely popular guy in our dressing room. He's a leader by example. He's got a great maturity about him. Anyone's been around him. He's got the size and physical component that we maybe lack. So I think it's really important that he checks a number of the boxes off in terms of the needs of our club.
I 100% agree. So now, looking back at the draft, you mentioned no, kind of an overall well-rounded position for the team. The Islanders don't draft until the second day and early, so it'll be the 22nd overall position. Where is your guys' head at with that position now? I know you guys have talked about having a few meetings and starting to get together a final list. What's that looking like for you right now in terms of what's available in and around that range?
Well, that's like trying to put a puzzle together, trying to figure things out.
Right.
So rather than identifying on one player, we have a group of probably 7 players that we anticipate, maybe 4 of them going to be there. It's hard to predict this draft. This 22nd will be the second pick of the second round because there's 2 compensation picks at the bottom of the first round from last year's draft. But traditionally, when you track back through, there's a number of high-profile names in our league that were drafted early in the second round. Ryan Francis of Cape Breton is one that comes to mind. Bocage up in Rouyn-Noranda, Pignard in Blainville, all guys that were in that same range. So
Brett Budgell.
There's still really good hockey players at the top of the second round, so we're excited about that.
Yeah, so I mentioned too about the different setup with the draft, with it being 2 days. This is probably the first time that we've had this kind of experience with our draft. Because we don't draft until day 2, do you think that there's any advantage in being able to have that extra time? You see the first round shakeout, you're like, all right, now I get to kind of sleep on what's happened and maybe tackle it from a different point of view on Saturday?
Yeah, we do. It's going to allow for a lot more conversation and discourse to really narrow down that pick. Number 1, we're going to know who's at play. And number 2, we're going to have lots of time to digest that, make any necessary calls. Sometimes when you run a live draft, stuff's coming at you very rapidly and your decision-making process probably isn't as thorough as it needs to be. So with the virtual draft and with the break between rounds 1 and 2, I think we're probably going to be one of the biggest benefactors.
No, I 100% agree with that. Now, looking at the draft itself and the crop of players available in this year's draft, what is it characterized by? I know in years past it's been like, really high-end talent at the top, spread out a little bit. What's this draft looking like in that regard?
Here's kind of the year of the defenseman. And I think the quality of the back end, the defenders, is as good as it's been in my 5 years here in the league. And in particular, when you talk to the Quebec area scouts, they think if you had to categorize, it would be stronger in terms of top end defensive prospects than forwards this year. And there's a number of same thing down here in Atlantic Canada. There's some really good defensemen. So a little bit of a switch. Normally we're talking about high end forwards. But again, I think you'll see probably a few more defensemen go in the first round than maybe we're normally accustomed to.
All right. Now, one thing that goes along with drafts, as always, is trades. That always seems to be a point of discussion, especially as we get a little bit closer. This next week will probably be nonstop rumors left, right, and center about what's going to go on. Have you and the rest of the team have any coals in the fire in terms of that? Anything cooking right now?
We're always looking. I think it's your job to look to make sure that explore all avenues to improve your team. So, obviously with the pandemic situation that we're in and the uncertainty heading into next year, I think may have a bit of an impact. I don't think you'll see as many player-related transactions as we have in years past. Again, just because of some uncertainty. Are we going to start on time? Is it going to be a modified, shortened schedule? Being questions that all of us have in a number of aspects of life right now, but there's no answers to. So I do think you'll see an impact in fewer trades, yet that hasn't slowed the rumor mill down. It's starting to kick up here, in particular in the last couple of days, and we expect it to increase heading into the draft.
Part of those rumors obviously involves, and especially given the situation going around worldwide right now, is the impact on NCAA players. We have one of those question marks in our organization itself. Ryan Green, obviously committed to Washington University right now. Is there any update on him, players like himself? And I know Luke Barty obviously attended prep school this past year. Has there been much discussion with them since this pandemic has all kind of taken place?
We've had ongoing dialogue with both players prior to the pandemic and obviously since as well. So the discussions are going, and I think for everybody involved, we're waiting for more information to become available. And this is such a fluid, ever-changing situation here that until kind of all the cards on the table, I think we keep all the doors open. And that's what we've done with both Ryan and his family and Luke and his family. And we'll have further discussions as the summer goes on and there's a little bit more clarity as to what's going to happen in the season.
Now, one of the other aspects of this summer that gets not necessarily forgotten about, but definitely there's this little bit of lull before it happens, is the European draft. Again, a lot of uncertainty kind of seems surrounding that right now with the current situation. Do you have any update on that? Have you guys just been focused on the Q draft before looking at the European draft?
No, I think it's always a parallel pursuit. You're always looking at the import draft as well, because when your roster builds, you have to factor in a number of things. The entry draft is one aspect, free agency is another aspect. The import draft is in a huge aspect of that. And we know right now we've got a big hole to fill with Nikita's absence. Jobin is going to come back. We're excited to have Gaetan back, but we also know what Nikita brought to our club. So there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding it, not just with the pandemic, but probably more importantly, the uncertainty around the NHL draft. Traditionally, our import draft is held the week after the NHL draft, and the two of them are fairly closely tied together. A lot of the players are drafted in the NHL first, and then their release from their various home organizations sometime is solidified by the NHL teams. We're not sure right now, and I know they announced today that the NHL draft lottery will be the 26th. So we're waiting. Probably next week we'll get an update from the CHL regarding possible dates for the import draft. I don't think there's any way it can be after an NHL draft late in the summer due to the paperwork and the visas, travel restrictions that are going to be in place. I think we're probably looking at end of June, mid-July at the very latest for that.
You mentioned free agents as well. You've been notorious for finding those diamonds in the rough. The list goes on and on. Hunter Drew, Brendan Clavel, names of that like. Any update on that regard at this time?
Still looking. We'd had plans to run possible free agent camps, but that's obviously on hold for the time being and probably won't occur. But we've had, again, a lot of talks with various different players. Rob Ridgely, Ontario-based scout, had compiled lists. So we've been doing a lot of background checking and homework there. And again, that one kind of hits in after this entry draft. There's a date in June when we can run out of area names through a waiver process, which is step number one in getting a free agent down here. So we'll be active on that day. We'll have a number of names through. And then again, as we move towards August and training camp, we'll see what we can do to land some of them permanently.
All right. That's awesome. That's great news. Now, I'll ask one quick more question about the draft. I think I may have asked it earlier on. I'm not sure if I meant to. Anyways, just looking at that, 22nd position, you mentioned there isn't much, can be, telegraphed. You run up a crystal ball because obviously anything can happen at the draft. But what are your expectations? What are you guys expecting to do with that 22nd pick?
Well, I mean, I've asked our scouts, if you look at the one need that our team probably has currently, and it's been a need for a couple of seasons and will be, is a natural goal scorer. I don't think we've had one probably since Daniel Strong was here. You know, a guy that needs, the 10 shots, 5 of them are going in the net. We haven't had that. We've had a lot of hardworking, great kids here, but in order to win hockey games down the stretch and have a great power play, you need that sniper. So that being said, to ask the scouting staff to find that at 22 is a tall task because there's not many of them at any levels of hockey. So we have a couple names that we're holding our breath to see if they happen to slide through. If they do, that's something that we'll jump on. Otherwise, we're going to look at best player. We don't want to box ourselves into saying it has to be a forward, it has to be a defenseman. We'll guarantee it won't be a goalie because we've got Jacob Booby right now. We'll draft goalies at some point, but it's not going to be at 22. So it will be either a high-end offensive forward or probably a defenseman that fits our mold.
All right, last question is actually a fan question. Wilf Banks would like to know if he will be traded during this offseason.
We've offered Wilf to anyone who would take him, but unfortunately there's been no takers. So it looks like we'll have to honor the rest of Wilf's contract.
Yeah. I know you were looking for 2 liters of Pepsi. You might have just settled for 1.
Maybe even a shooter glass that Pepsi would do.
Anyways, Jim, I won't take up too much of your evening. Thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And I'll be talking to you before then, but best of luck heading into the draft.
Well, thanks. It's always fun to talk hockey, and we hope everyone continues to be safe and healthy out there. And hopefully we can return to some form of normalcy in the rink sooner rather than later.
Hopefully soon. We're looking forward to seeing everybody. Don't forget that 2020-21 season tickets are available right now at our new temporary office at the Charlottetown Event Grounds box office, 360 Grafton Street. You can give us a call anytime, 902-892-7351. Jim, thanks again. For Jim Hulton, this is Aiden Northcott on Inside the Isles. Have a great night, guys.